Hi all, welcome to one more episode of the Wednesday Hangout of BDotNet. If you're regular, you know about the Wednesday Hangout. For the others, this is an initiative from BDotNet, the Bangalore.NET user group, where we get speakers who speak about a developer-related topic on every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Today we have Lohith, who works for Telerik India as a technology evangelist, where he helps developers adapt to the products, the Telerik products that has been available in the market. Today is going to speak about one identity in ASP.NET. This is a topic which has been covered in WebEd last month, June 14, 2014. It mean WebEd is basically, like a ticket that has been happened a month before in Bangalore. It has two panel tracks spoken about ASP.NET and the surroundings of ASP.NET. Without much delay, over to you, Lohit.
Thanks, Karthik. Welcome to this Wednesday Hangout. Today we're going to be looking at one identity in ASP.NET. This is a session that I took as part of WebEd, as Karthik mentioned. It was the day-long two tracks event that we at B.NET conducted in Bangalore, and then it was focused completely on ASP.NET. So this was one of the sessions that I did, and due to demand from the community that they wanted to see the same event kind of recorded, so we are doing this as a replay. So today is going to be mostly the same session replay that I'm going to do. Those of you who don't know about me, my name is Lohith GN, and I'm a Microsoft MVP in the area of ASP.NET and IIS. I am also a technical evangelist for Telerik in India. I've been a B.NETer for close to 4 years now, and I'm an author. These are my coordinates. I'm available on Twitter. You can tweet to me at Kashyapa. That's my handle. To know more about me, you can go to about.me/Kashyapa. That's the short URL that I have. Okay, so jumping into today's topic. So first, let's start, before going into the new identity system, let's spend a moment to understand where we have come today. Over the years, there have been a lot of things that happened in ASP.NET, very specific to the identity or the authentication authorization features. We started out with something called as membership providers. So what are they? So basically, if you had a website, so this is, I'm talking about the year 2005 and those kind of those era. So 2004, 2005 kind of things, when ASP.NET slowly started picking up. You started developing web application, but as part of the web application, you had to maintain membership. Meaning, I wanted a user to come in, sign up, have his user ID, have his password. So that is what was the requirement in the year 2004, 2005, 2006. So we solved the site membership requirements using membership providers. So basically what Microsoft did was, hey, you know what, we're going to give you a login control, we're going to give you a register control. Both this login and register control will look for something in the web.config, and that something was basically um, you know so that was something in the available in the ASP.NET out of the box. You just had to go in and then kind of set up some configuration value saying like, hey, for me the role provider is so and so, for me the login provider is so and so, and then usually it's shipped with SQL membership provider. So that is how you used to work with it. Mainly forms authentication, nothing else you could do. And then it used SQL Server DB for username, password, and profile data. But there were some limitation. Basically, these limitations were, first and foremost, the schema was SQL specific. I couldn't change it. So that was kind of a hindrance that everybody started kind of noticing it. And if I had to store an additional profile data, so what used to happen was I had to create a specific table, exclusive for profile data, and then I had to store it separately. But there was no, and then the schema for that the SQL membership provider maintained, it had its own column, and then I couldn't put anything inside that, but I had to maintain a separate table. And now, in order to get a particular additional profile data for the logged in user, I had to do a lot of circles. You had to write a lot of code to pull out that particular piece of data. Um, And then access to additional data, as I said, it was only through the API. I couldn't do anything else. And system was designed around the relational DB. If I had to write my own custom implementation, it used to call for a lot of code. And then nowadays, ASP.NET is all on Owen. It's the open web interface, meaning your application does not know who is the hosting environment is, what the hosting environment is. So it's kind of shielded out. It's kind of abstracted out. So IIS is one of the hosting environment, but your application doesn't know. So there's a middle layer that comes in. That's known as Owen. Katana is the implementation from Microsoft. So you couldn't use that. This 2004, 2005 logic that Microsoft had baked in. So you cannot use that for today. So today it's all about social logins. I just go to a site. I put a Facebook. I say, okay, authenticate with Facebook. So the site knows that I'm a Facebook user, gets the Facebook access token. So you couldn't do any of these things with SQL membership provider. So this is something that I figured out when I was going through the MSDN, and then this is how the whole membership provider, it's known as the provider pattern. If you see here, the bottommost layer is, hey, is the user information storage, or this is the store. So I have the SQL Server, or the Microsoft Access, or I may have my own, user-defined store. So it out of the box shipped SQL membership provider and access membership provider, and then that's the provider model. And then on top of that, we had the membership user. This was the APIs that was readily available out of the box, and then you would just play with these APIs. You would never get down the provider model. So if you had to write your own custom implementation, that's when you will write your own custom provider, and Microsoft had all the interfaces available, and then you would implement that, and then that's how you would write your custom things. And on top of that, the API will always know that, oh, I have an I provider, and then it starts working with that. And then there were integrated controls like login view, login, password recovery, change password, status, login name, create user, and all those things. So this is how pretty much the provider model was in the year of 2005. Then we had something called a simple membership provider. What Microsoft did was, during Visual Studio 2010 SP1 release, or during the Webmatrix release, they said, okay, Webmatrix is, by the way, kind of very simple syntax for creating. It uses Razor as a syntax called as, or the view engine called Razor, which has a Razor syntax, and it was aimed towards people coming from the PHP worlds or the ASP world, a easy pathway to get on to ASP.NET. So Webmatrix was the IDE. I love Webmatrix, by the way, and then I keep doing a lot of things using small things using that. So there, if you were building a website using Webmatrix, which is basically a web pages technology, the membership system that was provided there was known as simple membership. They wanted a simple way for people to bridge the authentication, authorization, membership, all those things. The goal was to make membership functionality easy in the web page. So I think I have downloaded the web matrix. So let me show you what this is all about. In the interest of the time, what I have done is I've already gone ahead and then set up a site. It's known as my starter site. So all I did was new site. That's all I did. And if I run this, you're gonna see that this is the pre Visual 2013. This is a 2010 theme that you see here. I've already created a user. I can come back here and then say the user is my email address, and the password is this. And there you go. I'm logged in, right? If you take a look at the code, the database, it's still a SQL based, but kind of simplified. It just has user profile, membership, OAuth membership, roles, and user in roles. So basically, they started providing OAuth support in the simple membership. And if you look at the code itself, I think the code is somewhere in. Let me take a look, account. And if you see here, register. Oh, let me just get it toned down. Yeah, there you go. So if you look at the code, and then it says db.open, database.open, db code is single, execute, and that the If you take a look at here, yeah, this is how easy it could get in this matrix, that the simple membership that to create everything. So if you had to log in, so you can take a look at the code here. So you would just say like web security dot login. Yeah, if you see here, it says web security dot user exists, web security dot login. That's all, as simple as it can get. But again, it had the limitation, not extensible. I just couldn't break whatever schema that I showed you here. Let me go back to the databases. And yeah, this is now, this simple membership is now tied to this particular schema. You cannot get out of that. I cannot store an additional profile data. I cannot change anything in this schema. And then again, I would have to write the custom code to get the additional profile data. A lot of headaches. Didn't work well with the existing providers. You could, this simple membership could not work with the SQL membership provider that was there. And I cannot process in a non-relational store. For example, I couldn't bring in maybe a NoSQL, the MongoDBs or anything. And again, can't use Woven. That's a big thing now. And then what happened is, they slowly realized that, the Microsoft Azure started picking up. So you had SQL Server on the cloud. So, we have the SQL Azure. So a lot of things started coming up. And then, so they wanted something which can work both with a on-premise SQL Server as well as Azure-based SQL Server. So they released something called as Universal Provider. So this would persist membership information in Azure or SQL Server or SQL Server Compact. When I say Azure, it's SQL Azure. So three things. I could just change the connection string, and then the membership would easily work with all these three guys. And it was built on entity framework code first. That was a big relief. I could just model everything in my entity code first and then do that. But again, it could store data in any store, meaning Azure or SQL Server or SQL Server Compact, but it had its own limitation. It was built on ASP.NET membership provider infrastructure, so same limitation whatever we had seen from the membership or simple membership. And this again was designated for kind of relational databases, and then it was hard to customize again the profile and then user information. So slowly the scene started changing. You wanted to keep a particular user's additional profile data, all those things. So they started becoming kind of difficult. So now comes to one identity. This is a new identity system, or the authentication mechanism that has been introduced in ASP.NET, and this is available only if you move to ASP.NET 4.5 and above. This was released along with Visual Studio 2013. So Visual Studio 2013 comes with .NET 4.5. So you need to be on .NET 4.5 if you want to make use of this one identity. So what is one identity? It's basically first let's understand the need for this particular thing called as new identity system, right? Why do we need that? So gone are the days where username and password is the login for you, right? As I said earlier, predominantly any site would now have Facebook, would now have Twitter, would now have Google Plus, you name it, Microsoft Live ID. So these are becoming the default to auth providers. If you ask me, these are the providers in terms of an authentication mechanism. Basically, I, as a application, now I'm delegating the authentication to somebody, and then say, hey, if you, and I trust you. For example, if I'm building my next, like let's say some app, web app, I would say, hey, Facebook, I trust you. So whenever somebody wants to authenticate, I'm going to delegate it to you. So if he has a Facebook ID, you authenticate him, and then send me a token saying like, hey, yeah, he's authenticated guy on Facebook. So I will respect that, and then I will treat that this is an authenticated user. So slowly the whole website mechanism is switching between you authenticating a user to delegating it to providers like Facebook, Twitter, Live, and then Google Plus. So basically it's no more a username and password, right? You have the social logins, Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, Google. And then also now what happens is I want to start unit testing my membership logic, with the SQL membership or with the simple membership or the universal provider. they were all locked in. You couldn't do any testing on top of that, and then it's kind of baked into the whatever DLL or whatever assembly it has, and it was hard for us to kind of test those things. So the goal or the need was all these things. Login is no more username and password. We have social logins coming in, and then we need to unit test our membership logic. So some of the goals for one identity was one ASP.NET Entity System, meaning I can use now, Web API is another interesting feature that's available as part of MVC 4 and above. And if you are developing ASP.NET and then in ASP.NET, then you have a Web API service available. So now what you can do is, both your normal MVC routes or Web API routes can both of them be kind of authenticated, or you can put the security and then use the only one identity system. That's the one ASP.NET identity system. You can easily plug in a profile data about the user. I'm going to showcase that demo now. I can persistence control, meaning I can control where it gets saved and all those things. I can do an unit testing on these, and then I can provide the role provider is always there, and everything is claims based now. That's the biggest thing. Even if there is a role called administrator, and then there is a user called Lohith, and then Lohith is an administrator, so now the role becomes a claim. So I have to claim that I am an administrator. That's how things work with the new identity system. Plus integration with social login providers. Out of the box, Microsoft provides connectivity to Facebook, Twitter, and then Google. um, if you want, you can use Microsoft Azure Active Directory. So you can delegate everything to AD comes back and says yes, he's authenticated. You can use the token and then start working. And Owen integration, so everything is a Owen integrated stuff here with the one identity system. And another interesting thing is everything is available as NuGet. I can start pulling in the one identity bits using a NuGet package to any existing application. Yes, of course, there are changes that you would have to do, but I can just go in and then say NuGet package, install package Microsoft.ASP.identity, and then there you go. I get the identity system coming into my application. So these were the goals for the identity system. Now let's kind of take a deep dive. Let me close this, and then I'm going to have my Visual Studio coming up. So I'm using Visual Studio 2013. As I said, you will need to be in 2013 and 4.5 in order to do whatever I'm doing. So if you have the Visual Studio 2013, it's already baked in. So now let me show you what happens. So I'm going to come in here and then say, hey, I want to create, let's say, one identity. So I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to say MVC. And as you can see, I've said MVC, and then I'm going to say OK. So what's Visual Studio now going to do is it's going to go ahead and then create me the ASP.NET MVC project. It's going to be MVC 5, and it also will go ahead and then bring in the identity system, one identity as the identity system for this application. So if you're seeing this for the new, this is something. If you're seeing this for the first time, basically, um, this is known as Project README. I kind of like this feature that Microsoft has put in. What this says is, hey, this application consists of sample pages showing basic navigation between home, about, contact. Theme is using Bootstrap. Authentication, if selected, shows how to register and sign in. ASP.NET features managed using NuGet, and then customizing. How do you customize? So these are the links to MSDN topics where how do you customize this app. If you want to deploy, if you want to get more help or get more templates. So I kind of like this project readme. It's available in the root. If you see here, it's project readme.html. So now coming back to our identity system, what it has done is it has already gone ahead and then created a couple of models for me. So we're going to come back to that. So if you see here, it says identity model. Let me see if I can zoom. Okay, so if you see here in the models folder, I have the identity models And then account view model is nothing but the view model for account related stuff, the like register, login, and all those things. We're gonna take a look at the identity model in a moment. And then of course we have the controllers coming into play. So we have the account controller. If you see here, the same thing. So let me run this first. And if you're seeing an MVC 5 for the first time, you will be surprised that the old templates are gone, and then now Microsoft ships to the Bootstrap based layouting. As you can see, it's fresh, neat looking, and then not only that, it's responsive. So if you see here, the 3-column layout now becomes a 3-row layout. If you see here, getting started, get more libraries, get web hosting. So this is the responsive layout, and let's take a look at the so this is the Bootstrap thingy, the menu bar that comes up. So if I go and then maximize this, you will see like I have the home, about, contact, register, login, everything as a menu bars. But if I resize, and let's assume that this your page is viewed in a mobile browser, it automatically puts it as a nice looking menu. Everybody becomes a column, a row. So that's the Bootstrap thing, and that's the MVC 5 feature. Shipping Bootstrap theme in Web Forms as well as MVC. So now I'm going to go to the register, and typical, of course, the out of the box template will always provide only email, password, confirm password. So you're free to go and then change it and say, if you want to collect first name, last name, city, whatever you want to collect, you can pretty much do it. But for now, I'm going to just do whatever out of the box it is there. So this is out of the box email, password, confirm password. So let me go and then fill up that. And one of the things they've done is it needs a capital letter, one of the characters to be capital letters. So I'm going to do a register now. What it does is it goes ahead and then registers me and then takes me to the home. There you go, I'm registered now. And okay, so that's all it is. So where is 1ASP.NET here? Okay, let's come back to that now. So what it did was basically it started out with identity model. If you see here, I have something called as application user, and then it is inheriting from identity user. So application user is not ASP.1 identity. Basically, this is a class that I have created in my application, and I have named it as application user, but it is inheriting from identity user, and then identity user is the the infrastructure that comes with ASP.NET identity. So if you see here, it's part of Microsoft ASP.NET Identity Entity Framework dot identity user. So that's the namespace, ASP.NET Identity Entity Framework, and identity user already has the all the infrastructure that you need. So I provided my email ID, and then I provided my password. So but if I'm saying this is my application user, so where is the property, or where username, right? My email ID is my username now. For that, what is happening is this identity user, if I go take a look at its definition, you will see like it is inheriting from something called as identity user of this particular type. So everything is under here. So if I go here, if you see here, the identity user has the username. So the username is nothing but the email ID and the password hash. So everything is now baked in, and if you're okay with this, of course every user needs to have a username, and then by default this is the email address is the username that we are using. That's the convention that we have followed. And the roles, two-factor authentication, email confirmed, email, string email. If you see here, everything. So email and username will be both set to the same now. So that is where everything is stored. And I never said anything about database here, right? So how is it possible that to create? I told you that the one identity system is all about entity framework. So there you go. So I have an application DB context, and what I'm saying is application DB context is nothing but it's inheriting identity DB context, and identity DB context is working on a type called application user. So this is the main bridge to your database and your identity system now. So basically it's going to go ahead and then, since it's entity framework, it's going to go ahead and then look for a default connection. So let's see what's a default connection that has been set up. So if you go to the web.config, you will see that I have a default connection which makes use of the local DB. So and then it says attach DB file name, and then of course I could have changed the name here, but I just left it for the demo. So in the data directory, I will have an ASP.NET One Identity demo, so and so date timestamp.mdf. So now if I go and then check my server explorer, you will see, like, it's able to figure out that I have a default connection and I have a table. So let me dock this to the left and take a look at the default schema that has come out. By default, what it does is it has the users, then this is the claims that I was talking about. So if, remember, I just registered myself. So if I go and then say show me the table data, and here it is. So it's basically has created a table. If you see here, the username is my email address, and then here is the email, the same email, and then the username are both the same. And so that's how it is done by default. That is, it is having this particular users. So now you may come back and ask, like, okay, this is fine, but you said now additional profile data maintenance is easy. So on application user, let's say let me go back to the identity models. So I want to kind of handle a scenario wherein I want to have, let's say, a color, a string property called color, and I want to also have a string property called first name. So now what I'm doing is I'm, assume iteration 1 is done. Iteration 1, the email address was sufficient for you, but now you are in iteration 2, and then suddenly the requirement says, oh, you know what, we need to maintain color for the user, and then also we need to maintain his first name. So that's the scenario. Now what do? Your database is up, you're pretty much deployed, your iteration 1 is working. So how do you change your database, everything, right? So remember, I told you this is entity framework. So entity framework has something known as migration. So first thing that I would have to do now is I will go ahead and then enable migration. So I'm going to say, like, tools, NuGet packet manager, and then packet manager console. So let me take it full screen, and I hope this is visible now. So all I need to do is I just have to say enable migrations. So now what's entity framework is going to do is it's going to prepare my system for migrations, handling migration. So it's going to go ahead and check, like, hey, it's checking for my database. It says yes, I found a database, and then what it did was it created an initial create. So here is a folder. So let me zoom it for you. So what it does is it goes ahead and creates a folder called migrations, and then I have this initial create. So if I look at what initial create contains, take a look at what it did. It went ahead and then said, hey, these are the table that initially you should have: ASP.NET roles, ASP.NET user roles, ASP.NET user wants to down this, meaning install it. So this is fine now. So initially, if you see here, if we as ID, email confirmed, password has security stamp, phone number confirmed, two-factor enabled, lockout, access failed, and then username. But I added two other things. One was the color, another one was the first name. So how do we get that? So for that, if you have done entity framework, you will know that all I need to do is I just have to say add migration, and I will say updated uh, first name and color. So my migration script now. So I just said add migration. So if you see here, it says scaffolding migration, updated application user with first name and color. So that's the name that I gave. So if you see here, oh, I think I should have given a better name, but that's what it has done now. So if you see here, it has gone ahead and created another C# class file, and it says updated application user with first name and color. So it's pretty much appending whatever migration status that I gave. So what does this class file contain? So if I take a look at it, it says, take a look at this. Automatically scripts out the changes that I did to the columns, right? It said up, create color, create first name. Down, meaning if somebody wants to go down this, migration, meaning one level below this migration, so it has to be like remove these two columns. But if since I need to add this columns, I have to now go back to my package manager console and then say update database. So what it does is now it picks up all the migration. Take a look at this. It says it's running the explicit migration updated application user with first name and color, running seed method. So done. We are now done with migration. So now if I come back to Server Explorer and then refresh my table and then boom, take a look at this. Now I have the columns that I did for my iteration 2, that is color and then first name, right? So I can pretty much do that. So everything is entity framework. There's nothing kind of holds you from doing anything. You can pretty much do whatever you are doing with entity framework. You can do with your with your identity system. So now another question may be like, okay, this is fine, but how do I get this guy? How do you get this color or the first name, right? So let's go to home controller and I'm going to say if user dot is authentic no identity dot is authenticated, because every time I will be hitting this. So what I'm going to do is first I need to get the manager. So there is something known as new application manager. Where was my identity model? Just give me a second. Oh, I didn't talk about the Owen aspect, so let's quickly take a look at it. So for if you have to integrate yourself with Owen, so this is how it does. You will have to place a class file called startup.cs. It has to be in the root, and basically it will have an assembly like Owen startup attribute type of this. So Owen will look for this, which assembly has it, and then which is the class that it has to get an entry. So I can go back here and then take a look at this guy. So what now we do is, this is what it does. It says app create per Owen context. So this is like a dependency injection that is happening. So application user manager. So I've created my application user manager, and then this is the create. So it's like every time somebody asks for application user manager, so it's
Yes.
basically like you take this, and then I'm setting up the cookie authentication using Owen. So I'm setting up everything like authentication type is application cookie. The login path is everybody has to go to account/login, and then on validate what I need to do, validate interval, regenerate identity, and then yeah, this is something that I was talking about. If you just
Yeah.
uncomment all these things, it's basically you know uh, it will allow the social login provider
Yeah, even I'm
automatically.
just no, no. Even I'm just trying to log into the GoToMeeting, and I'm
Hey,
not able to do that.
Karthik,
I'm
can
just
you mute? Okay, so am I audible, Sanjal?
Yes, Lohith, you're audible.
Okay, So these are the the social login provider that I was talking about. So you just uncomment them, and then you can pretty much work with the thing. So then you can get the Facebook access token or any of these access token, store them as a claim on the user. That's the claim for him to be a valid user. Now coming back to the home controller. So basically this is application, and so this guy will need an store. So we have an identity store of application user. No, I need application user. Yes, I messed up something. So just give me a second. Let me get my code here. Okay, it's the user store. I always get confused. So this is user manager needs a store to work with. The store works on a particular type. So the user store is baked into the ASP.NET identity framework namespace. So I'm saying, hey, application manager, here is your user store. The user store works on an application manager, sorry, application user. And I'm going to say new application uh, yeah. And what is wrong here? Let me check. Yeah, I need to new up. There you go. So let me break it down for you. So first you need to get the application manager. That's the entry for you to actually work with any of the identity user's identity. So I'm saying application user manager, the user store for you is this guy. So you should use this context. So basically the store relies on the context. And then I need to add a new identity. So now basically I can just come in and say, where user is equal to manager dot find by ID. You can do that, or it knows that it's going to be application user. So I need to get the logged in user's user ID. So what I need to do is I need to say user dot identity dot get user ID. So next what we can do is we can check for, okay, you remember we needed the first name, so I can say first name. There you go. So now what happened was it's now giving me the application user type, and our application user type has this property called first name, and and then remember we had the color also defined, user dot color. Of course, what happened here was, we have created the first name and color property after I had logged into the system. So what I will do is I'll just go and then say like, hey, show me this row. I'll say show table data, and this is the color property. So I'll say I like the orange color, and then my first name is Lohith. So now I have, I of course I kind of manually doing this, but in a deployment scenario you wouldn't have to do that, because you would be pretty much going ahead and then saying like, okay, iteration 2 is done, now start the fresh testing, and then normally your testing team would start creating new stuff. um, so that's how it is. Now let me put a breakpoint here inside this. For the first time it's not going to hit this breakpoint because I will not be authenticated, so it hits only when I'm authenticated. So we have the application coming up now, so I can do a login now. So remember I had created my credentials. So let me log in. And we hit the breakpoint. That's because I'm authenticated now. So now all I have to do is, I just have to say, okay, go ahead. Okay, so here is the user. It returns me the user that I need, and notice what has happened. So application user is a subclass of the identity user. So everything, the base class is identity user. So everything else is on the base class. If you see here, everything else is on the base class. The username, the email, email is not confirmed, the password hash for my password that I have created, and the color, and then the first name, it's here. Remember I just went ahead and then changed the backend. So now if you see here, oh, it didn't come. So if you see here now, I have the color as orange. That's what I set in the database, and then first name is Lohith. So uh, this is a brief kind of a intro that I wanted to show in terms of one identity. That's how easy it is now. With one identity, you can just plug in anytime and then start using it. Um, the coolness of one identity is not just this. Let me zoom out. Of course, I can now come in and then make use of the color or make use of the first name to show it on the view or whatever it is. What interesting is, people have gone ahead and then built a lot of providers for this. Basically, there is somebody. Let me just bring it out. ASP.NET identity. So if you see here, this gentleman has built ASP.NET Identity and Windows Azure Table Storage. So, it's available as a NuGet package. So what this does is, if you don't want to use the SQL Server as the store for storing the identity information, and you want to, somehow your requirement is to store this in Microsoft Azure Table Storage. So yeah, you can just bring in this NuGet package here. If you see here, this is a NuGet package, leaksnet.asp.net.identity, and you just use it. Instead of identity user, you have to use identity user from the leaksnet ASP.NET identity table storage namespace. And then what it does is it has all the logic inside to pretty similar to where you give the connection string. You would have to give your Azure table storage credentials, and then the this library has all the code logic to actually connect to your table storage, store the user data there, get back the user data, everything it's going to do. Similarly, there is a ASP.NET identity MongoDB. Yeah, there you go. So there's a MongoDB.asp.NET identity. Somebody has gone ahead and done a identity provider for MongoDB, meaning uh, you can use MongoDB as the backend in order to store your identity. So as I said, if it were to be simple membership or a membership provider or the universal provider or the SQL membership provider or the simple membership providers, you couldn't change against your schema to the SQL server. Now with this, what happens is it's so extensible that people have started writing their extensible packages on top of the ASP.NET identity. Basically, MongoDB. I have my colleague from Telerik who has written. We have a backend as a service called Telerik backend. So he has a blog post where he showcases how to store the user name, password, all this identity related data over our backend. So we have our own API. So he has hooked in those APIs, and then you pretty much take that whole library and then start using it, and then it will do everything for you, like storing the user, getting the user claims, roles, all those things. So a lot many providers have been written. MongoDB is there. I believe RavenDB is also there. If I just go in and then say RavenDB, yeah. So here's the ASP.NET identity to the RavenDB. RavenDB is another popular NoSQL database. So this is what's been done. So this gentleman has gone ahead and said, okay, if you see here, all you need to do is ASP.NET identity.ravendb. So you have to just have to say Raven user. So like that. So one identity is pretty interesting in terms of what it does, and then in terms of the extensibility points that it provides. If you're moving, I mean, if you are targeting ASP.NET 5, so that is what you will get. It will be one identity system. So that's pretty much it what I had for today. These are my coordinates. You can know more about me at about.me Kashyapa, and then if you want to write to me, you can write at kashyapa78@hotmail.com. I am on Twitter. Kashyapa is my handle. And this was a session that I presented at WebEd June 14th as part of the B.NET event. And pretty much that's all I have from a demo or presentation perspective. If there is any questions, I can pretty much start taking them. If there's anything question, Karthik.
No, Lohit. I don't see any questions right now. Maybe I just give a couple of minutes. If there is any question from the viewers, they can
Sure,
ping it.
sure.
Okay, here is an interesting question. You said it's one identity, right?
Yep,
And there is something called even one ASP.NET. Is there
correct.
some kind of plan from Microsoft to say bring everything together at one thing? Because you see that one keyword being used in most of the things
No,
nowadays.
it's just a kind of a terminology that we keep using. Like, this was just if you're talking about the title slide, which is that I used,
Mhm.
but there's ASP.NET is the new ASP.NET MVC 5 that is there. Are
Mhm.
starting from MVC 5, you start hearing about one ASP.NET. So I just coined it as one identity in ASP.NET.
Mhm.
So the terminology is one ASP.NET. So
Mhm.
if you go to Visual Studio, and then let's say, let me close this solution. Yes, I want to stop debugging. Yeah, so now if I say new project, and if I say web, you're going to get only one.
Mhm.
So one ASP.NET web application. So that's the terminology here. But if
Mhm.
you are in Visual Studio 2012, you will see, like, when I say I want to create a web application, you get a lot of choices.
Mhm.
Web app, web forms, MVC4. So that's all gone.
Mhm.
You just have to say, hey, I want to create a ASP.NET web application. And then when you say okay, what it does is it's going to ask you, okay, that's fine. So what is the flavor that you want in the web app? Do you want a web forms flavor? You want an MVC flavor? You
Mhm.
want a web API flavor? And then I can mix and match. I can say I want to have web forms as well as MVC as well as web API. So everything in one. So
Okay.
that's the terminology of one ASP.NET.
Mhm.
And identity system, I just coined it as one identity, but there's only the starting from MVC 5 and above, which is to 2013, the identity system has completely changed. So there's no more a provider model. Rather, it's all EF code first. As I
Mhm.
showed you, it's all code first, and then you can pretty much do the migrations on your profile tables and all those things. So that's why I said it's one identity for one ASP.NET. So, but that's not something that Microsoft has coined.
Okay. And another question, you showed something about one ASP.NET. Are you going to be speaking about that in the future session sometime for Hangout?
Yes, I think 2 weeks from now we'll be coming. I will be coming back to replay my another session from WebEd. It's one ASP.NET. So that point of time, we're going to take a look at what is one ASP.NET, and why, like, what made Microsoft to come out with something called as one ASP.NET and all those things. We're going to be looking at, I think, 2 weeks from now when I do the replay session of my WebEd one ASP.NET session.
Mhm.
Lohit, there is a question
Hmm.
from Jagannath Pradhan. So it's like I had a question, but not related to one identity, but this is related to debugging of jQuery. I'm using IE10 for debugging. If I'm putting debugger, it is not eating that one. I don't want to use developer tools. Maybe silly, but I want to know.
The preferred approach is the debugger. Just put the debugger, and then it should hit your code, provided that line of code has been executed due to some reason. If the debugger is placed inside, let's say, a loop, or let's say a if condition, and then the condition never matches, and then the debugger is inside, so you will never hit the debugger in your Visual Studio. So it's it's kind of, you got to take a look at what is happening. I would say um, one of the easiest things that everybody does is to get on the developer tools and then make sure that the JavaScript that's there on the client side is getting executed line by line. So that's why you use the IE developer tools. I would say that's the easiest way to actually figure out if that line that you have has hit or not. Otherwise, yeah, you would have to pretty much go back, take a look at your code. If you put a debugger keyword and the Visual Studio is debugging, it should hit the debugger line, and then you should land there, and then you can pretty much do whatever it is. But yeah, without looking at the code, or kind of looking at what's been written, what is the scenario, it's a little tough to actually kind of guess what might be the reason. But I would say, if you ask any web developer, either the Chrome tools or the IE tools or the Firefox developer tools, those are the kind of life saviors. I pretty much I don't kind of debug my JavaScripts on the Visual Studio. Rather, I do it in the developer tools, and then I know, oh, this line did not hit because of so and so condition. I have all the complete quick watch stack, everything. I can see it on the developer tools. And then for me, from my experience perspective, that's where you should be doing it, because it's the client, the browser is your client for your code. So you want to know what is happening on the client side. So I would pretty much do it there.
Great. I think there are no more questions.
Okay,
Let's wind up here.
sure.
Thanks, Lohith, for the session on one identity in ASP.NET. Actually, it was very informative and really appreciate your effort to speak on the same topic covered in WebEd. And I hope I will be covering one more session of WebEd as well.
Sure.
Hope everyone enjoyed the session. So you can watch the recorded Hangout and also the previous Hangouts at youtube.com/btv, B.NET TV. For future updates and on the upcoming Wednesday Hangouts, be part of our Bangalore.NET user group in Facebook, which is facebook.com/groups for B.NET. Thanks everyone. Have a good night. Thank you, Lloyd.
Good day, guys. Bye.
Bye.